Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I am going to talk about books, specifically the 10 plus books that I want to read in what's left of 2023. It's currently sort of middle of May, so there are 7.5 months left of the year. Last year I read 12 books, so I decided that this year I'd set my Goodreads 2023 reading challenge to 13 books, and I have read 4 books so far this year. So if I can read or complete 9 more books in the rest of this year, then I'll hit my reading challenge, and that'll be really good. So this is a list of books that I would like to read / finish for the rest of this year. So the first one is Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire. This is actually the 3rd book in a series. It's the Wayward Children series, which I presume Heather has spoken about before on this channel. She's a few books ahead of me. She recommended that I read book 1, and I did. I read book 1 and book 2 quite quickly. They are actually 2 of the 4 books that I've finished this year that are on my Goodreads. I'm not going to get into too much detail, as I'm sure Heather has spoken about them before, but the basic overview is that this is a series of books that follow children who go through some sort of portal to an alternative world that is, I guess in some cases, more suited to them, and it also follows the children that have come back to the real world from those places and how they sort of deal with that. So I have just started book 3, and I've read book 1 and 2 really quickly. I'm really enjoying it. I really do anticipate that I will finish this book this year, as it's sort of, at the moment, it's the only fiction book that I'm reading, but that will change throughout the year, as we'll come on to later on in this video. The next one is 4,000 Weeks. This is by Oliver Burkeman. I think I'm about a quarter of the way into this. The basic premise of this is that 4,000 weeks is sort of 77 years, which is close enough to the average lifespan that it's pretty accurate to say that as a human you will get around 4,000 weeks to live your life. And when you word it like that, it kind of sounds like that's actually not a lot of time. But rather than being about how much stuff you can cram into that 4,000 weeks, it's actually about being realistic with your time and realising that that isn't actually a great deal amount of time, and therefore you should really prioritise what you actually want to get out of your life and focus on doing those things, as opposed to thinking you can do everything and then ultimately not being able to do anywhere near as much as you wanted. I think most, or to a certain, yeah, some to most of what has been in this book are stuff that I've already kind of thought about. But I think again with things like that, it's not the worst thing to read things that you already know when it's worded in a really good way, which I think this is. And it's nice to have a lot of related thoughts to do with that thing written down well, which I think it is written well. And it's an easy reference to come back to. Book number 3 is Building a Second Brain. This is by Tiago Forte. So I started reading this on the Kindle last year when it first came out, and I kind of realised that it's not necessarily the kind of book that I want to just read in sort of dribs and drabs when I've got a spare 10 minutes. It's actually the kind of thing that I want to sit down and read sort of chapter by chapter, take notes on each chapter, and then sort of start implementing those things. So I asked for it for Christmas, got it physically, and I'm going to restart it from the beginning. The premise of this book is that it kind of leans into the whole our brains aren't very good at storing things. Having ideas is what we're good at, as opposed to holding them. Whereas computers are good at holding information, and therefore we should delegate the task of storing and organising our thoughts into some sort of note-taking system, which Tiago Forte refers to as a second brain. So this book is about how to get started setting up a second brain, really. He talks about splitting up all of your notes and all of your documents into 4 sections, which are P, A, R and A. Projects, areas, resources and archives. So projects is the things that you're sort of actively working on. Areas is the things, the roles and responsibilities that you have some sort of responsibility of over time. Resources are things that you're just generally interested in that might be useful in the future, but you're not actively working on a project to do with right now. and then archives is things that are either done or sort of things that are from those other things that are like completed or no longer relevant. I have started going through my notes and moving these into basically figuring out what the projects and areas are. It's quite a big task and it's a bit daunting actually, but I can already see how figuring out how to like split all of your notes and your documents into these sort of areas can be quite beneficial. So I would like to restart the book, especially now that I've got it physically. I'm going to take notes on it, so I guess that's just something that I'll carry on with in 2023. Next up is Braiding Sweetgrass. This is by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and I'm not actually going to go into any detail about what this book is about because we've just released a video about mine and Heather's book club that we're going to be doing. Heather and Jay's novel encounters. That video should be up by now, so we'll link it below. Please watch the video. If you're interested in reading any of those books that we discussed in the video, please join the Discord and join in. Yeah, I think that'll be really cool. Next up is Fugitive Telemetry. I've spoken about this before, so this is the 6th book in the Murderbot Diaries. I read the first 5 of the Murderbot books really quickly towards the beginning of last year, and then I got about halfway through the 6th one, and for some reason I put it down and never picked it up again. So my plan for at some point this year is to start it again and actually finish it and read it, because I really like this series. So yeah, that's Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. Next up is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. This is by T. Kingfisher. Again, I'm not going to go into any detail about this because the book club, this is the 2nd book that we're going to be reading as part of that. The next one is a book that I have just started. It is called How to Keep House While Drowning. It's by Casey Davis, and it is about mental health and self-compassion. So the author went through a really difficult time during the pandemic and wrote down how she dealt with it, basically. Next up is Strong Female Character. This is by Fern Brady. This is the 3rd of the 4 books that we're going to read this year as part of our book club. So again, I'm not going to go into any detail here, but watch through the video and you'll be able to hear all about that. The 9th book on this list is Dinosaur Philosophy. This is by James Stewart. Heather's read this, she recommended me read it too. This is actually the 2nd one in the series. The first one's called Dinosaur Therapy. I read it in like a night. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant, and I plan on reading the next one. It's a web comic printed out in a book, basically. So it's super easy to read, really cute and nice, chill, and yeah, looking forward to reading that. And book number 10 is Shady Hollow. This is by Juno Black, and it is the 4th book that we're going to be reading as part of our book club. So yeah, again, just watch through the video basically. And there are 2 other books which I expect that I will end up reading this year. The first one is In an Absent Dream. This is the 4th book in the Wayward Children series. So as I have already started book 3 and I read books 1 and 2 so quickly, it does sort of stand to reason that I will end up reading book 4 this year as well. And the 2nd book of the sort of additional ones is A System Collapse by Martha Wells. So this will be the 8th book in the Murderbot series. It's not out yet. I believe it's due to come out in November. So presumably, if I end up reading Fugitive Telemetry this year, I will be in the mood to read the next book when it comes out, and November of this year should mean that I should be able to read it in 2023, but I guess we'll find out. So yeah, that was 10 books that I really want to read, 12 that I actually expect I will, books that I want to read in 2023. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye. This is it. Jesus Christ. What's the name of the book club? Oh, fuck knows where I've got that from then.